is derived from the leaves of the coca plant. When cocaine enters the body, it has a strong effect on body functions by acting as an irritant on the brain. Large overdose of cocaine causes convulsions, then death. Cocaine causes unusual and often unpredictable feelings and actions. In his ignorance, Marty took that dare, little knowing the eventual horror that lay in the deadly white powder.
Marty, have you seen the pinking shears I bought last week? Can't seem to find them anywhere. Marty, you don't seem right. I'm worried about you. There's something wrong. I'm going to take you down to Dr. Beaker this afternoon for a checkup.
No, I'm all right.
As his body gradually built up intolerance, he needed more and more of the drug.
Ooh, I miss that music. I miss that song. Shout out to Gadamy. That is his creation. But I'm going to turn it off now. I'm going to get rid of the banner. Here we go. Okay, we are live. It is Sunday, April 28th. Bridge Sky. It's been a while. Have you missed me? You're listening to KISS, Keep It Simple Stupid, Recovery 101, Risky Relationships. Ooh, this is my favorite monthly edition. We are on round 2. This is the second round of series on this specific risky relations. And on that note, I would like to introduce a brand new co-host. Jen, do you want to say hello?
Hi, I am Jen. Really excited to be here and on a podcast. I'm kind of new to podcasts, so this is really fun. So thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you said yes. I couldn't think of a better co-host. A, because you are in a relationship. B, because you're very educated, knowledgeable, wisdom's all over the place. And C, because we see each other weekly. And every time you share something, I'm like, I either laugh or I feel like I take some piece of wisdom from that meeting. And also, I like your energy. So I guarantee my listeners will as well. Okay, so KISS. Love that sound effect. Now tonight, being that it's a monthly edition, means it's not a typical episode. So when there's a guest, we do the hot seat. But instead of the hot seat, when we're going to be talking specifically on this topic, which is tonight, we have pro tips. So specific, professional, like knowledgeable wisdom solutions are going to be sharing. Now, the post reads, have you been estranged from family or friends? Did you need to separate from relationships or social circles? Tonight, this live discussion is going to be about both sides of turning away from someone, being alienated, and how to find acceptance no matter where the lines could be drawn. So, estranged definition is having lost former closeness in a state of alienation from a previous close or familial relationship. That's what the dictionary says. So Jen, I'm just going to put you right on the chopping block. Have you ever been estranged? Have you ever had to cut someone off? Have you ever estranged somebody else?
You know, I think that in recovery, it's kind of an ebb and flow for the past 14 years of sobriety. But at the beginning, it was very difficult for me because when I was actively using, I had a lot of my friends all of a sudden kind of trickle off. And I would look on, social media, or I'd hear about them going out. And I would think, well, I was free. Why didn't they ask me? And what was happening was that they weren't asking me because they were afraid. And one woman, my really good friend, was also extremely afraid because my son at the time was 5 or 6. And so what she even told me later when I did get sober is she said, I had to break away from you because I was too worried and it caused me a lot of stress.
Wow.
so that was in the beginning. And of course, I didn't care because alcohol, drugs were more important to me. And then I went to treatment. Well, I went to the hospital, went to treatments with the hospital, but there was a specific treatment that I was at that I would call my parents and want to talk to them. And even when my mom would not speak to me the whole time I was in treatment. My dad, she'd, even if she answered, she'd hand the phone to my dad. And I don't know to this day. She passed away a year ago, but I don't know to this day why that happened. I don't know if she was embarrassed, or if she, which I thought at the time, or whether it was self-care for her. Which she, you know, could have maybe told me that. or
Yeah.
or whether she felt at fault because of genetics. You know, I don't know, but it was really, really hard. And the one day she came when we had visitors, and she cried and sat in a corner the whole time.
Wow.
So that kind of burned into my brain a little bit and made me feel a lot of shame and guilt and pain that I must be putting that I was putting my family through. That was really rough because she estranged from me. My friends estranged from me. My neighbors did after a while, but alcohol never did.
Yes.
So I had that friend there that never went away. And it became a better friend as soon as I would lose other friends.
And it took away the pain and the shame and the embarrassment of, being estranged.
Mm-hmm.
I know for myself, at the end of it, I estranged myself from everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And coming out of coming out of a surrender and an acceptance and being in treatment and, realizing that I can have intention, because I realized if nothing's going to change if I don't change everything. And so gradually, of course, my only circle that I focused on was myself and my children. But then slowly, I really would ask myself key questions of who I want to allow back in my life for my mental health and for my recovery, because I knew my environment previously, no matter how many times I moved, no matter how many different relationships I got into, wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into, now I have a great clip, but what I want to talk about with estrangement is there's 3 core reasons, specifically in adulthood, why adults estrange, especially like their parents or, key people in their life. The first reason is abuse, which kind of speaks for itself. Physical, emotional, verbal, mental neglect, all those things. The second common reason is poor parenting. Let's be honest, that a lot of things can fall into that category.
Mm-hmm.
But number 3 really stood out to me. And honestly, I didn't even recognize until I came across this video and really did some research this last week how much I didn't realize number 3, betrayal, affected everything, and how much deeper that went for me. And how recently, a few weeks ago, one of my best friends had no intention of betraying me. And it was looking back now, I realize it was such a little thing that happened. She didn't there was no intention of betrayal, but I had to describe to my support groups, my therapist, I just came out loud. I said, I feel betrayed. And it's a whole different can of worms. So I don't even want to talk about it. Let's go into this clip. It's 2 minutes.
Okay.
But it talks about PBS. It's not the channel, PBS, but it's post-betrayal syndrome. I find this very valuable. So, Jen, when we get back, I'm going to get your take on it. Okay, here we go. Now, her name is Debbie Silber, and so it's a TED Talk. So if you do want to find it, I did post the link in the chat and in the comments. Oh, and no comments. So anybody listening, feel free. If you have questions, if you want to share, some of your story, if you want to, anything we're saying we're leaving out, please feel free to contribute. And I'm going to get to this clip. Here we go.
Third discovery. There's a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's known as post-betrayal syndrome. Now, here's the big misconception. We've been taught time heals all wounds. That's not true. Within 1 year, we've had over 4,000 people take the post-betrayal syndrome assessment quiz on our site to see to what extent they're still struggling. Every age, so many different countries. And there's a question that reads, is there anything else you'd like to share? Besides reading about the pain, the heartbreak, the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms left in the wake of this type of trauma, people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago, I'm unwilling to trust again. My betrayal happened 40 years ago, I can still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 15 years ago, I feel gutted. We've also learned that 67% of people who take the quiz prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 84% have an inability to trust. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how. And betrayal affects every area of life. It affects us in business or in relationships, where if we don't learn the profound lesson that betrayal was there to teach, we have repeat betrayals. The faces change, but it's the same thing. Or we put that big wall up. We're not letting anybody get close to our heart again. Sure, we keep out the bad guys, but we keep out the good guys too. We see it in health, where people spend so much time, money, effort, and energy going to the most well-meaning doctors, coaches, healers, therapists to manage a stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. At the root of all that stress, an unhealed betrayal. And we see it in business.
Okay, I cut it off there because there's a lot to it, and I encourage anybody to listen to that full thing. So I already know 2 key things that stood out to me, but Jen, do you want to go first? Is there anything that stood out to you right away?
Oh my goodness. A lot stood out to me because this is something that until about 5 years ago, my therapist, which she said I had PTSD. And I said, okay, I have depression, anxiety, and now I have PTSD. I found out she figured this out because I would talk in my sleep about things that were very family related and not being loved, kind of asking for things in my sleep. And my boyfriend was like, what is going on? And you keep talking to your parents in your sleep and you keep saying, okay, so now everyone online is going to think I'm super weird, but it actually, this happens. So I taped it like every night, and everything revolved around my parents and my childhood.
Wow.
And so I actually had to take medication that like vets take to stop me from talking in my sleep every night.
Wow.
And I would say things like, well, why can't I? Or why, a lot of why questions, or, why am I not doing that right? So a lot of the perfectionism, the self-esteem was coming out, kind of asking why, almost like, why don't you love me? And I know that my mom loved me. I know that my dad loves me, but love was, here's $20 for getting good grades. Love was, let's go out to eat because you did well. There was no hugging. I'll never forget, I went to the state golf tournament in high school, and my dad walked up and he was so excited because I made it individually, all this stuff. And he came up and he gave me that side hug, that, hey, good going kind of guy hug, not a real hug. And that is betrayal. And that is something that I realized, and I actually changed even when I was drinking, when I wasn't, whenever. I changed with my son. I broke that because I knew a long time ago that it was hurtful. I went to college. Someone hugged me. A girlfriend hugged me one time. I'm like, what are you doing? It was the weirdest thing ever.
Yeah.
Get off me. Why are you being like this? Because I didn't know what that was about. I didn't know why people hug.
Mm-hmm.
I, and then I would hug like with my butt sticking out, and kind of like weird because I couldn't handle the, it was just, and even my boyfriend will say too, you can't help it that you grew up without affection. Because I try, but sometimes it doesn't come out very easily.
It doesn't
Like,
feel natural.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
totally
And
understand.
I look at other people's moms sometimes. I'm like, wow. I was watching this girl sit with her mom at school the other day, and she had her head on her shoulder, and they were just sitting there, and I'm like, wow, that would have never happened.
Mm-hmm. I love how she said people think that saying time heals all wounds, and that's BS.
Absolutely.
I feel like I needed, I had all the time, and none of it, I did not heal much. It was like, what do they say, putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound, bullet
Yeah.
hole wound. So I like that she pointed that out. I also like that she said, when I would estrange people, yeah, I'm keeping out the bad guys, but I'm also was keeping out the good guys too. And so when someone would betray me, and back in the day, it didn't take much for me to like lose all trust. If I caught you in a lie, or I caught you talking about me, or whatever, I took that very personally, and now I realize that was part of what these deep-rooted feelings, or what I felt as betrayal. And I'd ghost everybody. I'd be done. Like I made no ties with anybody, and so I love that she pointed out like that also cut me off from a lot of, maybe typically positive relationships. And so the other part that is very, I think, crucial was many times they're seen as stress related symptoms because they're very much similar. However, I think it takes a good therapist, and that's hard to do when I was changing those around a lot too, to really realize that this is deep rooted betrayal. And I think that's huge. And so, what I want to do, if you're up for it, Jen, is I'm going to on the screen point out. So, there's 5 key, this woman in her research, because she's been able to like label this with post betrayal syndrome, there's actually therapists now that can get certification, and there's 5 like stages or like a program that will take you through, just because she said it is not the same as grief. These are particular things to go through that will get to like real healing. So here's stage 1. Can you see it, Jen? Do you want to read it? I'm going to take the banner
Yep.
off. Go for it.
Stage 1, disproportionately prioritizing the physical and mental over our emotional and spiritual selves. At the initial stage, we find ourselves leaning heavily on the physical and mental aspects of ourselves after neglecting the emotional and spiritual dimensions. This imbalance creates a vulnerability. We're so busy doing and not being. Like a table with only 2 legs, it's easy for that table to fall over. When we're only focusing on certain areas and neglecting the others, we can crash too.
That one stood out to me right away, because where I'm at now, almost having 5 years of long-term recovery, is instead of, focusing and distracting myself with the negative things, now I go all to the good things, the service work and volunteering and helping all my friends. And so I won't even recognize what I'm doing until, like, my friend Kate was like, hey, Bridge, she goes, wow, I don't even know how you do so much. And unfortunately, for me, that was a flag. I'm like, uh-oh. I remember hearing that before. Uh-oh, what am I avoiding? What's going on? And when I really sat with myself, I realized an interaction with one of my best friends. I knew in that moment I felt shame. I felt embarrassed. I felt heartbroken. And it wasn't, and then when she said that to me, I was like, okay, next meeting I go to, which ended up being a Dharma meeting, I'm just going to lay it all out there and just speak with not even thinking, just speak. And what came out was I felt betrayed. And I had been minimalizing that in my mind because I'm like, this is a small thing. To outside person, what happened wasn't a big deal. But to me, because I had put so much trust in our relationship, oh, there's our first alarm, Jen. So I should let you know what that means. Okay, first alarm. That's just, this show is about an hour, so I try to keep it to an hour. That's just to remind us that if anybody would like to comment, ask questions, it's almost unbelievably crickets, which makes me wonder if these new connections with StreamYard aren't connected, but that's all right. So if anybody, especially any of my friends listening, just say hi, because then I know we're at least connected. But I'll definitely find out later, because this is live, if it was a connection piece. But that was just a reminder to keep moving along, and feel free to, I got a notification. Hi, Casey. I got a wave. Yay. That makes me happy.
Yay.
Okay. So
we know that we're not just talking in the air. Well, we are, but
yeah, staring at a screen. Okay, stage 2. I'll read this one. Stage 2 is the breakdown of the body, mind, and the worldview. Stage 2 involves D-Day, or Discovery Day. It's the scariest of all the stages and marks the shattering of our existing reality. Ooh. The shocking news of revelation shakes us up physically, mentally, and emotionally. We've ignited the stress response, and we're headed for symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. So it's a collection of physical, mental, and emotional symptoms common to betrayal specifically. Physiologically, our bodies react to the stress response, and mentally, and we struggle to comprehend the magnitude of what we've just learned. Ooh, I gotta get a book. This sounds. Now I'm like, ooh, challenge accepted. Let's do it. Okay, Jen, do you want to quick read through stage 3?
Yep. Stage 3, survival instincts emerge. Survival instincts emerge as we navigate the practical aspects of our healing journey. Questions regarding our survival, trust, and next steps dominate our thoughts. However, stage 3 is where most of us get stuck. Once we figured out how to survive our experience, we get comfortable there. We start getting all of these small self benefits, and we start attracting people towards us who confirm that this is where we belong. Because we're not happy but need to get through our day, here's where we start numbing, avoiding, and distracting ourselves too. There are other things we do here as well, but this is where the majority of
Continue. Those who've been betrayed
land and stay. It's also the stage where we're getting more and more symptoms of past betrayal syndrome, and we'll start doing all we can to find some symptom relief. So we'll go to doctors, coaches, healers, and therapists to help us with a stress-related issue. But what's really driving it? The unhealed betrayal. You can see how this stage is like quicksand, a place of symptom relief, numbing, avoiding, and just surviving.
And if you did like I did and went down into the ditch, I used substance uses, so many different substance use items. And yeah, I mean, and I also felt ignored. I felt pushed aside. Like a lot of doctors or therapists, they just want to give me a pill and send me on my way. And oh, you got depression. And I never felt like a sense of relief. I never felt acknowledged, and it just pushed me to not trust people further. I like the quicksand analogy she just gave. Okay, step 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. In stage 4, we come to recognize that our old normal no longer exists. While we can't undo the betrayal, we regain a sense of control over our lives, and we get to decide what we do with our experience. Acceptance, acknowledgement, and adaptation become key as we adjust to our new reality. I call it recovery. Ding, ding. It's during this stage that we start to implement boundaries, establish new rules, and prioritize our own well-being. Yes, this shift paves the way for further growth and transformation. And last one, Jen.
Stage 5, healing, rebirth, and new worldview. The final stage of healing is a testament to our resilience and personal growth. Here, our bodies begin to heal. We prioritize self-care as a fundamental aspect of our journey. Mentally, we develop new perspectives and make conscious choices based on our newfound wisdom. By embracing this stage, we experience healing, rebirth, and a profound shift in our worldview. We recognize the progress we have made and the immense potential for a fulfilled future.
Beautiful. So Jen, we just kind of went through those stages pretty fast. Anything stand out, or anything that you might have conflict with, or anything that you want to point out?
I could you back up to like
Yeah.
the other stages?
Well, we got
There we
3.
got 3. Okay. That one, getting stuck. So, this is where being in recovery is really hard for me with some other people. So this is something that I was thinking about last week, because I kind of feel that I'm between stage 4 and 5, a lot more on 5. But part of this is getting stuck complacency. And so quite often, if I am sponsoring somebody, or I am working with people in the program or in another meeting that I go to, and they say, well, I'm not coming to the meeting on Thursday, I need to not judge, but I do, because that's the only meeting that they also go to. And either I'm jealous that I need to go to 3 meetings plus do, other connections with people and make sobriety a priority. And it kind of bothers me because it's a little bit, this reminds me a little bit of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of moving to self-actualization. And so where I'm at is nowhere near self-actualization, but I feel like I'm kind of at right before step 5, where I know I need self-care, but I'm afraid to take self-care because other people need my care. And that is very difficult for me. And I don't let people then really love me. I need to love them first. And that's kind of where I know I'm at, or I was last Thursday anyway, when I complained about it. But I was taking care of my dad. So sometimes an 85-year-old can drive you to the brink. But that gets to be really something that, and then I want people to come out of the woodwork and just love me. That, which the one thing about our groups, or about AA anyway, is that everybody loves each other, and that's why I go. Not for, just recovery, but another reason why I go to those types of things, because it's unconditional love rather than conditional love that I grew up with.
Right. And okay, I'm going to tap into, I have squirrel mind. So I want to back up when you talked about how, like, in your home, like, affection wasn't natural growing up, really, it wasn't. And that was the same for me. In fact, but I think I also, on a next level, I was physically abused a lot. Like, we were hit and hurt a lot on a daily basis. And I know that for me, I think when I was introduced to alcohol, it was this release of these constant fears. I mean, I literally would flinch any time anybody moved too close to me or whatever. And I remember people would make fun of me because, they didn't know, but they didn't know. Like, I was, like, damaged a lot. I had a lot of trauma, PTSD as well. But I know that drinking, like, allowed me to, like, be physical on any aspect. And I know as a parent, this is probably sounding awful, but I'm going to tell myself, like, literally, I spent a lot of nights, like, having a couple drinks and relaxing and being able to just cuddle and, like, settle myself because I was very unsettled. And it turns out I was also recently in my 30s diagnosed with ADHD. That's another thing that was misdiagnosed. But I feel like understanding recently that I was betrayal. It's been untreated betrayal from my parents. Not only were they not affectionate or validating ever, they were just verbally, physically, mentally, emotionally abusive. So it was like double whammy. But I like that stage 3 points out survival mode. Like that was definitely, I'd say, the first year of recovery still. Oh, we got alarm number 2. Oh, it's Sarah Jane's on. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Okay, let's just remind us, keep it going. We're going to get into the pro tips or clips. That's the second segment. But I just wanted to say that I think for a good year, like this last time, now I've been in and out of recovery 17 years, but this last go around, it took a solid year where I had 1 or 2 women in my support groups that I like unconditionally I felt drawn to and a trust with. And it's only because they unconditionally supported and made me feel valued and loved, no matter what, even though I didn't love myself. But I definitely found that with the survival mode thing too, I think that first year I was avoiding myself. It was hard to be honest with myself of all the things that I had done to myself, to my children, to the people around me. I was a pretty bad person. Like I recently expressed to one of the people that I'm working with, I'm mentoring or guiding with her, and she's beating herself up, and I said, you're on survival mode, okay? Like your brain right now is wired to protect yourself, okay? So like don't beat yourself up. Like I totally want to validate that. However, you're also pushing away people like myself who genuinely are healthy, like experienced people that aren't judging you and are supporting you, and I'm not going to let you push me away, So give yourself some grace and just, like it says, small steps. Okay, let's get into, I just wanted to get into a pro tip clip now. For me, for me to really find some relief, forgiveness was key, because that relationship, especially with my mom, my adopted mom growing up, I realized that even though I had forgiven her in a sense, I never really estranged her. I just stopped being the one to invite her to things. But she never called me. She never invited me to things. She never included herself. But there was still a piece of me that felt like I hadn't thoroughly been able to let go, and I didn't understand why, because I'd be doing the workshops, we'd be doing the amends, and I'd be like, yeah, I forgave her, but I still didn't feel whole about that until Oprah and her wisdom gave me some beautiful, like a deeper sense of like finding forgiveness that I could accept with her. So here we go. I'm going to play this clip really quick. Okay, so pro tip number 1, let's talk about forgiveness.
After 25 years and more than 30,000 guests, that's talking to a lot of people, it was one man's definition of forgiveness that changed my life.
Carol, you mentioned that the secret to really finding true happiness is forgiveness. What do you mean by that?
It really means letting go of the past. It really means letting go of our perception that we need to hold a grievance the rest of our lives. That if we really want to hold on to grievances, we'll never really be happy. It's really a willingness to see the person in the light of love rather than in the action that happened. So it's really changing the perception, and it really means letting go of the past that we thought we wanted. We can't really change that past, so it means really releasing the negative perception of it and coming back to the present.
That was a transcendent moment for me, bigger even than an aha.
He said, forgiveness is giving up the hope that the past could be any different.
I think for myself, and I know many of you, you think forgiving means accepting what has happened to you. Well, it is accepting that it has happened to you. Not accepting that it was okay for it to happen. It is accepting that it has happened, and now what do I do about it? Forgiving is giving up the hope, not holding on, hoping, wishing that it could have been any other way than it actually was. Giving up the hope that the past could be any different. And when I got that, I think it took me to the next level of being a better person, because I don't hold grudges for anything or any situation, and neither should you. It's letting go so that the past does not hold you prisoner, does not hold you hostage.
Ooh, what do you think of that, Jen? Ooh, we got some comments. Let me see. Ooh, Sarah says, I think we also think we are just being maybe too sensitive with our needs and should just adjust to where others are if we want to have relationships with them. Question mark. Yes. I always minimize my own needs, and I feel like I'm blowing things out of proportion. She said, or we just back away and push people away because we feel like a burden. Ding ding. Jeez, that's spot on. And Casey says, holding on to resentment is like taking poison, oh yes, and expecting the other person to get sick. Spot on.
Yep.
So Jen, what do you think about Oprah's take on forgiveness? Have you heard that I put it on the screen too? The giving up, it's really just giving up the hope that the past is going to be anything different. I remember feeling defensive when I heard that. And then I realized, when I sat with myself, I'm like, I'm hoping my mom will be someone she's just really never going to be capable of being. She does not have the capacity as a human being to acknowledge what went on in my childhood. She will never do that, because that will mean her whole life was a lie, like everything that surrounded our childhood. Because she's still, the last time I went to her house, seeing this, what is it called, shrine to my dad, her husband, like he was a good person. This man abused me. I was like, even though I know directly, I've told her several times, she couldn't deny it. She was still in denial. And not only did that hurt me, but I realized she was still carrying this fake facade with anybody and everybody else who crossed her path. So of course she's never going to be what I want her to be. And like acknowledging that reality that I have to let go of that she will ever be able to say, yes, Bridge, it was not good what had happened. Like just acknowledging that. So anyway.
Yeah. This reminds me of the definition of insanity. The same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But and it will keep you sick if you keep going back to that. And I beat myself up over several things from my past, and then I have to try again to move forward, and I think as you keep going, it's one step back, 2 steps forward, and you keep doing that until you're in a place where, or for me anyway, that I can give that up. And
Right.
one way that I've also been able to do that is you've heard me say this before, but I am not the only person that has done. Alcoholics, drug addicts are not the only people that have done things, that they, in their past, that they don't feel good about. And some people may disagree with me, but sometimes I just think, why do I have to feel more shame and guilt? And I know that doesn't quite go with the program, or quite go with maybe what other people think. Here I am trying to be a people pleaser. That is what I think. And
Yes.
and I don't think that it's fair that addicts beat themselves up over so many things. But we are the lucky ones because we have programs, we have meetings, we have people where we can work through those things, and other people don't. But I can guarantee we're not the only ones who have done those things that we're beating ourselves up about.
Absolutely, Jen. that was a professional tip. You just gave a pro tip. I would agree. I think the whatever it looks like, at least I'm thankful to be a person that's had a substance use disorder, because there are so many people out there that they're called normies, or I call them muggles. They're just normal drinkers or users or whatever. They could just smoke weed and be fine, but they don't have a lot of them don't have this, I call it self-reflection. Like these steps that I use them as a self-referral process. Literally every night I check in with my higher power, and I can easily like pick out one thing that went right in my day. But especially at night is when I tend to beat up on myself. And especially that's why it's important for me to have like a consistent weekly, group of women that I feel safe with. It's a safe space, but I get to talk about those dark things that are inside me that are keeping me sick, make me sick. Those secrets keep us sick. Well, I tell them myself all the time. And luckily I know that my space, I can just give them all this trust. I feel like, I could just put it all out there. And that just literally saying things out loud is really all like the therapy I need these days, which is very helpful. Okay. Yes. I want to touch on another pro tip. So that first clip that I shared, she actually has a quiz. So I'll share that link, but it's a quiz that will like take you through, like if you actually, instead of it being stress or necessarily just trauma, it can get to the root of, is it betrayal? Because like trauma, that comes in many different forms. It doesn't have to be some big, all whatever thing. It could be something little, like what just happened a few weeks ago with my best friend. It was something little, but it deeply affected my, I'd say my soul for some reason. So, okay. So pro tip number 2, I'm sure you have, Jen, because I know you're a reader just like I am. There's this great book. It's called The Body Keeps Score. Are you familiar with that book?
I am reading a different one similar to that.
Okay. Have you read this one before?
I have not.
Oh, okay. Well, I just want to share. I've listened to the audiobook, and I actually have a workbook coming. But one of the things that he, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, I don't want to say his name wrong, prescribes is, because I like to give tips that someone can literally do right now. Maybe they don't have insurance. Maybe they don't feel comfortable going to a therapist. Maybe they're not ready to reach out and get into a group thing. But he says that just sharing your story, talking about it, is beautiful. And so finding a space to do that, I am what's known as a certified peer recovery specialist. I'm an individual person. There's now many of us in the state of Minnesota, but all over the U.S. I have a person that has lived experience, right? Okay, so I've had a past of substance use disorders, many different substances, but I've also found recovery. And so I'm a peer that's a safe person that you can share things with. And I'm the last person to judge anybody. But what I want to point out with that pro tip is Brene Brown brings up a good point, and this might be something we go into next month, but don't just be sharing your story to anybody who will listen. There's 6 type of quote unquote friends that don't deserve to hear your shame story, and you never should be telling them that stuff, because it can 100%, I've learned, be slapped in your face with it. And it could be even more damaging. But he says that it is important to talk about it in whatever, form that you find comfort in. So now, Jen, do you have any final? We are getting close to our last. Oh, there's another comment. Casey says guilt is event-based. Shame is identity-based. When we learn to assign purpose to the event, it changes the identity. Ooh, love that. Mm-hmm. I would agree. Like, guilt is, I did something wrong. Shame is, I am wrong. Mm-hmm. Renee's the one who taught me the difference, because my final moments, darkest moments, I remember believing that I was a bad person. No one was going to be able to fix me. I couldn't fix myself. I couldn't change my mind and my ways, even though I've been trying for years. So I really believed I was buried in my shame. And I think that's what I learned when I learned the difference between guilt is good. Guilt is healthy because guilt allowed me to realize, yes, I've done bad things, but that doesn't make me that person. And when I decided I'm changing, I don't care what anyone thinks about me. I've made these decisions. I'm letting go of the past, and anyone that wants to bring up my past, they ain't gonna be in my life no more for now. Oh, that's our final learn. 15 minutes. So, final thoughts, Jen, on the topic of being estranged, or is there anything that you would say to someone who's listening right now? Well, I'm thinking about having to cut off somebody that I know is toxic to me. Like, is there anything, or maybe they've been, cut off. Is there anything you would say that comes to your mind that maybe would be some advice or they can think about or sit with?
Being cut off from somebody, number one, I think is something that kind of step 3, or you have to give that one up, because you can't control other people. But I think when you're in recovery, cutting other people off, it's hard. It's so hard. It's extremely hard for me. But the problem is that if you don't, you'll keep falling into traps. So there's certain people that there's a person that I just can't stand, a person I used to date. And, but I want to stalk him to make sure that his life isn't going well.
Yes.
That puts me in a
Is
spiral.
Facebook creeping?
Trying to, or, just, he hurt me so badly and it was such an emotional abuse roller coaster. And and it's bad because I need to get over it. I need to get through it. Somehow I have to let that go. But I also fall into these pitfalls because I haven't let that person go. And so that's another piece of just, it's almost like I'm envisioning like a game where, you're running along and you have to jump over like a rock, and you're running along and you have to jump, like a video game. And I don't know how to shut it down with certain people.
Right.
And that is something that I absolutely need to do. And when I have done it for small amounts of time, I've been happier. And then I get mad because I'm happier, because I don't want him to be happy because I'm happy. So then you end up in another circle of guilt and shame, and I can't believe I let him do that, and how it's not a good road to go down. And taking my own advice on that would be a really good idea. I can give out advice. I just take advice very well from myself. The other thing that I just briefly wanted to say is that when I was in recovery and I went and saw a therapist as soon as I got out of, when I finally decided to go into recovery and try and build my trust back with all of my family and my friends and my, colleagues and so forth. I had a therapist tell me, he was amazing, and he's written a lot of different things, but he said to me, Jen, you just need to know that working with the population, with people with addiction, he said, is my favorite population to work with because they are the smartest people that I know. But also sometimes too smart for their own good.
Yes.
But
absolutely.
finding that spirituality, the two things that we're missing with the table that we talked about, being able to balance your life and have parts of all of that is kind of the step that would move you to step 5. And one that kind of constantly working on, something that I'm constantly working on, in self-care and other ways.
And at your own pace, right? And with your
Mhm.
own individual. Because for me, I know in my deepest, darkest days, I couldn't do spirituality. Like I had given up all faith and hope. I did going into a program that was based primarily on you need to find spirituality. I was so severely depressed that I needed science facts. I
Yep.
needed something more than just hope. And when I saw a brain scan that showed me and I learned about neuroplasticity,
Mhm.
it was like this little light of hope came in, like I can really, like you mean it, like I can really change my brain. At that point, it was like then I could start allowing back in the spiritual element. And of course, now that's definitely my go-to, but it took a good solid like rebalancing myself. Another thing that I like this point that was pointed out is that there's three points that come with accountability. One is just awareness, acknowledging that. The two is accountability, but three is the action. And for me, I need a piece of recovery every single day, whether it's a reading, whether it's listening to a podcast, whether it's going to a meeting, whether it's calling one of my sober sisters, like I need something. Because if I don't incorporate something every single day, small piece, I very quickly could go right back into my mind. My old ways of thinking, my old patterns are very much still rooted in me.
Mhm.
Okay. And then Sarah said, Bridge, that is so hard to do. Trusting someone with your deepest, sometimes darkest things is so hard. And I had to start therapy because I need help to get those yucky things out. She said, it helps me listening to others share. It's my favorite thing about being in AA. Absolutely. I just love listening. I needed to hear other people's stories to realize that I wasn't alone in the worst parts of the things that I did. So, okay. Yes, let's get into our final segment, which is much more lighthearted. It's actually my favorite thing to end the show with, but it's just memes that for whatever reason throughout the week, and you've shared some too, which is fantastic, gave me joy or gave me some insight or just gave me an aha moment. And I know that the only thing that I definitely wanted to point out is literally every day. If I'm spending time with someone. This is how I can decide whether they need to be out of my life or not, is I ask myself when I leave that person, whatever time we spent together or whatever, energy I put into that conversation or that appointment or that meeting, is this person, do I feel uplifted? Do I feel celebrated? Do I feel heard and validated? Or do I feel drained? Do I feel lower? Do I feel less than every time we interact? So if that's like a constant interaction with them, I realize where I value myself now is they're not putting in the same time and energy that I am into this relationship. And relationships can look as simple as acquaintances or friends or coworkers. But if there's someone that literally I leave feeling ucky, I feel like I went down some notches on my happy level, and that's consistent, then I realize this is not a person that I need to spend any more time and energy with. So it might sound harsh, but honestly, I was the opposite before, people pleasing and all that. So I'm proud of myself that I can just cut ties like that. It's needed. And I'm open to coming back, but a lot of times folks don't even notice that I haven't done that. Okay. Jen, are you ready? I got some sound effects.
I'm ready.
It's meme time. Okay. Sorry, I love that Illuminati sound. Okay. Meme number one. Now, hopefully you can see these. Everybody can see these. This is one of my favorite ever memes. Jen, you want to describe what you see? Then first describe the picture and then go ahead and read it.
Any friend. I need boyfriend, dad, but break up.
Me going, break up before they even finish their sentence.
Yep. I totally, after a while, I just have to say something kind of interesting. But, now that when you get to being my age with nobody knows how old I am online. But anyway, I have a 24-year-old son. But once I get to my point in my life where I'm with friends and, and men are like, oh my gosh, can get, relationships can get really hard or annoying. I always just say, you know what? We're just going to go take over an assisted living facility and have a ball. And we're going to bring, dogs, and we're going to have, you have no idea how many women I have right now on a list that would join me.
Oh, I hope I'm in that category.
You can join me too. It's funny. I have at least 10 women that want
Yes.
you want our own like little assisted living place and have as many animals as we want. So it's kind of
Love
funny
it.
how that just brings it up. Like, you know what? No, just don't even go there.
Yeah. I mean, that's where my mind goes, but I want to be the supportive friend. But in my mind, right away, I'm like, break up. Okay. Next one. This is from you, and I think it just correlates perfectly. There's a dirty, disgusting looking pool there. It
Yep.
needs to
And
be
I have a
clean.
friend of mine who's trying to date and is in AA, and I think he would agree that it does look like that.
It says the dating pool in early recovery. And I would say, depending on where you're going for your groups, it's consistent. Now, Go
Yep.
for State's coming up, and you got to watch yourself because a lot of people, it's like 5,000 people roundup thing. There's a lot of people coming there just for the hookup. So watch out. But there's definitely a bigger pool there. Literally, there's a pool there. So just be mindful.
It is a pool, and it has all sorts of stuff thrown in.
Now, this is a beautiful one. Just words. Unknown author. Jen, can you read it?
Yeah. I used to think communication was the key until I realized comprehension is. You can communicate all you want with someone, but if they don't understand you, it's silent chaos. Oh gosh.
It's fire.
Bridge.
And that just speaks for itself. I definitely have those people that, of course, I'm going to stay in their life. But I realize, I don't need to, continue this conversation. They're not capable of, hearing what I'm saying. They're just listening to listen to wait for their turn to talk, but they're not able to comprehend the depth of, that's what I love about my people in recovery is, we've been through the depths of hell, pain and suffering. And, for me, when you walk in those rooms, you're already on a deeper level of life. I already have a mutual respect. Whether you keep it or not, that's on you.
Yeah. I have to tell you that one I could put over my desk because it's not only in personal relationships, but in work.
Yes.
The competitiveness comes up.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I don't miss my office space jobs. I can't do it. These people is their lives become the office and get so petty and so small minded. And I'm like, this is not about. Okay, anyway, sorry. The next
That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another episode. But this next meme, I've shared this a few times. It's accountability 101. You got the broken egg, right? And you do not say, I meant well. You do not say, that was not my intent. You say, ding, I broke the egg. That's beautiful. So if you're like, I don't even know where to begin to apologize or to, say, admit to, just getting to that space of admitting, for me recently, I had a conversation with my 18-year-old son. And he threw me off because previously he had said he was talking to his friends and told his friends, he had a really rough childhood. And my defense inside went off. I was like, how can he say that? I mean, yes, he's right. He definitely went through my shit and I didn't want that on anyone. But then my brain in that moment, okay, I immediately recognized later that why was I being defensive was because I was comparing his childhood to my childhood. And how dare he didn't have it as bad as I had it. He didn't get his ass beat every day. And, and then I realized, whoa, I'm becoming... Here I am preaching all this wisdom and knowledge, and look what I just did to myself. I mean, I didn't voice that to him, thankfully. I know that when I feel reactive, I always pause, and I talk to somebody else about it. And so he deserves to have, that was his experience. And 100%, that was not a good childhood, not what my intent was. But I'm not going to say any of those two things. When we've talked about it, I said, I did not... that was not right. That was not a childhood that, anyone should have gone through. and just acknowledging that. Let's lighten it up with your meme. Quick, Jen, describe it. Go.
Oh my goodness. So this is where I'm at because I'm in that whole level 5. I'm going to do self-care because I feel like I deserve it. But anyway, you must be saving a ton of money by not drinking, right? I am going to tell you that I do have an app that shows me how much money I have saved in the amount of time that I've been sober. And it is almost $80,000.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
But you know where it is? It's in self-care, mocktails, candy, and therapy. Is where that money went. But I can't think of a better place for it to go. But absolutely, it's there. Hot tamales.
Oh yeah, I have fruit snacks. I love the strawberry Welch's fruit snacks right here next to me, Jen. You missed out.
You know what? I had candy to bring too. If anyone online knows where my keys are, please let me know.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just giving you shit. This one's huge. I actually got this. I'm in school right now, but this brought karma to a whole new level for me. It says the meaning of karma is in the intention. The intention behind the action is what matters. This is of the Bhagavad Gita. I always feel like I know I'm saying that wrong, but I always thought what goes around comes around, and if you're a jerk things are going to happen. But really, when I was in survival mode, here we go, I'm going to back it up. When I was in survival mode and I was just trying to get through the day, to get through the hour, literally, I focused on just doing the next right thing. And especially at where I was at, whatever that meant to me, in my heart, I felt like I'm doing the best I can. This is what I know is right. It might not be perfect. I might have failed. I might have looked like whatever. But I knew in my soul that I was doing the best I could with good intentions. And I have many stories of things that just happened it just was like, oh, these things just keep falling in place. They keep aligning and synchronizing. And, I have all these crazy stories of things that just were kind of miracles that happened. But I believe it has to do with my intentions and karma. Okay. Oh, this one's great, Jen. Please read it.
We wanted to be adults so bad. Now look at us. Just fucking look.
Just fucking look at us. Adulting all over the place.
Yep. Or I have a shirt that says I'm not adulting today. And I work with teenagers and sometimes I wear it and they're like, okay. Who's going to help us?
Yeah, exactly. I'm starving. I wonder who's making dinner. Oh yeah, that's me again. Okay, this one's like a cop. He's got the aviator glasses on. He's painting. It looks like he's repainting a white line that looks like it's been, faded. And it says, me, refreshing the line after I've allowed too many motherfuckers to cross it. Okay. Final meme, very positive. I think it's from the Sober Curator. Jen, you want to read that one?
Walk out of the door with your head up. That's the best way to see who is holding the next door open for you.
That's so beautiful.
There's so many different sites and, the Sober Curator, haven't heard of it. It's so interesting to find out all this information when you are on these different learning on this as a learning tool or other learning tools. It's so cool to find other things to learn more.
I hear your puppy. Oh, my daughter's on. She said, hey, Mom, you're doing so good. Oh, my gosh, that warms my heart.
That's sweet.
Sarah says, yeah, drop them. She says, I can't wait for Gopher State. Yeah, she went with me. Her and her friend came, and she got to go swimming and eat all the food. And Sarah goes, exactly. Very magical. Yeah, and we got
diet soon so that I can go to Gopher State.
Yeah, and it's kid friendly, food friendly, and just so much going on, like meetings till 2 or 3 in the morning. Like it's coming up. It's the Memorial Day weekend, y'all. If you can make it, I encourage you to. Okay, final shout outs. I just wanted to say thank you, and Andrew Clint, for letting me. I have a new studio, Jen. You didn't get to make it in because you lost your keys. I totally understand that. It's probably for the best.
I'm going to have to Uber to work. I have no idea what's happening here, but we'll see.
I'm going to send good juju your way, but if you're first theory is correct. I don't know if Dallas is going to be feasible.
Yeah, exactly.
And then last shout out though, I wanted to give a heads up. Now, along with this risky relationships, I'm excited to introduce. I have an exciting other co-host. Now, I was going through the steps once a month. Guess what? We're going to be doing something fresh, and I got kind of a famous fellow podcaster, Charles LeVar from the Way Out podcast, is going to be joining me as a monthly co-host, and we're going to be doing some stuff. Now, I'll put this out there. There may be video. I'm not promising anything though, so otherwise I might not do it. But
I'm gonna find my keys by then.
I really hope so, because we could definitely do a team thing. Okay, everybody, I hope you, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Sarah and Juliet and Casey, especially the ones that interacted, but you just listening, I heart you so much. I got to tell you, I was having some serious anxiety and a case of the efforts just before I got here. I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. I'm so glad we did, though, Jen.
I am too. I'm sorry to increase your anxiety.
Nah. But then I had my fruit snacks and I was okay. I was like, well, let's do the virtual thing. So, everybody, I hope you have a great rest of your week. I will catch you on the flip side, and we're going out. I got this great music. I've got to keep it real. This returning home. Good night, everybody. Night, Jen.
Good night. Thank you for having me.